Ya Orana, everyone. This is Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter, and that is the traditional greeting of French Polynesia where I'm currently vacationing. I'm actually honeymooning with my husband, and we are on the island of Moorea, and we're headed over to Bora Bora in just a couple of more days. And I wanted to create a card for you greeting you from this fabulous land, and I thought nothing could be more fabulous for this greeting than this Hero Arts color layering pineapple stamp set. So I'm going to create a greeting card for you using this today, and I'm starting out with my mini Misty here, and I'm mounting the most solid of the images onto my mini Misty so I can stamp them onto this Nina Solar White cardstock. Now this tip I picked up from Jennifer McGuire. When you have new stamps, they don't always stamp the best right out of the package, so sometimes you need to dirty them up a little bit, and so she showed on her channel a couple of weeks ago that you could use a little Versamark ink, just ink it up and then wipe it off with your hand. And then ink it up with your dye ink and stamp it onto your paper. And you can see I got beautiful results with that. And this will even out and smooth out even more. So for my stamping here of the pineapple, I use the Altenew Warm Sunshine Crisp dye ink. I love this beautiful, rich, warm yellow color. And for the flower, I'm using W+9 Sweet Nectar dye ink. So now that I have my base images stamped, I'm going to go ahead and add the detail images on top. I'm just putting it right on my paper, and then I pick it up with the lid of my Misty. And I'm not changing ink colors here at all. I'm going to use the same exact colors that I used for the base. When you layer up these dye inks like this, you can build the color on top of each other. You don't always have to have 15 different colors of dye ink to do these color layering stamps. You can see I just used the Warm Sunshine and the Sweet Nectar once again, but this time I'm going to stamp it twice so that it intensifies even more. I get a little bit more contrast. If you don't want quite as much contrast, you don't have to do the double stamping, but you can see the nice contrasted look that I got there. I got plenty of contrast. I didn't need a second yellow color. I just needed to stamp it a little bit extra. Now, I cleaned off my stamp and I wanted to add a little bit more realistic look to this pineapple. So I brought in the Hero Arts Moss Hybrid ink and a little piece of a makeup sponge, and I'm just sponging some of this moss ink onto that detail image. It's the same one that I just stamped before. And then I'm stamping it right over the top, and that gave me just a little bit of green. It actually created kind of a brown color, which if you look at pineapples in real life, they do have some greens and some browns. They're not all yellow. So I took the third image. This is the least solid of all of them. And I inked that up with the moss ink again, but I used the makeup applicator once again to apply that ink because I didn't want it to go overboard with the green color. I wanted that green color to just kind of blend in there and mix in. And you can see the nice coloring that I'm getting. But I felt like it was a little too green, and so I kept that image right in place, and I'm inking it up with the Warm Sunshine dye ink again and then stamping it. I stamped it twice with the Warm Sunshine dye ink, and you can see the cool detail that I have there and the more realistic coloring that I got on my pineapple. Now for my flower center, I originally stamped it in a brown ink and I decided I didn't like that, so I stamped it again in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I love the contrast of that. Now, before I stamp my stem or my leaves or whatever you want to call it on top of this pineapple, let's call it its headdress, because I think it kind of looks like a headdress. So before I stamp my pineapple's headdress, I'm going to make sure that I have it positioned correctly so that I can cut it out with the coordinating die. Once again, I am just inking that stamp up with a little Versamark ink and then wiping it off. And then I'm going to ink it up with the Hero Arts Moss Hybrid ink and stamp it on there. Now, I didn't get a great impression, and that was because I didn't ink it very well. But I'm going to be building the color up with the detail images, so I'm not really worried about that imperfect stamping. And you can see before I did my stamping, I made sure that all of that was going to fit within the confines of the die that I had. So I just kind of held the die over the top of it, made sure I had my headdress in place, and now I'm stamping up those images here. I went from the most solid to the medium amount of stamp image and then the least amount or the least solid image here to build up this headdress on my pineapple. So once I got all of my stamping done, I'm going to use the coordinating dies to cut these out. So I'm going to position that right over my pineapple, and I'm going to kind of neutralize a little bit of this micropore tape on the back of my hand, and I'm going to use that micropore tape to keep that die in place while I run it through my die cut machine. Now I stamped a couple more of the flowers because I'm going to use more than one. And the colors I use for my additional flowers are the Simon Says Stamp Teeny Bikini color, and then I use the Hero Arts Hybrid ink in Tangerine for that really bright orange one. So here I'm just positioning all of my images, kind of getting an idea of where I want it all. And I decided, this is where I actually decided that I wanted to put the traditional greeting on this card. So it's spelled IauRana. Ya Orana is how it's pronounced, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But I just watched a video where a guy from Bora Bora said it, and that's how he said it, so I'm assuming that's the right way to pronounce it. So I printed it out on some vellum using my laser printer because I'm going to be doing a little foiling. I'm going to be adding this deco foil. This is in the champagne color. It's one of the newer colors that they've released this year, and it is my favorite gold foil because it isn't quite as deep and dark as their original gold. It is like the perfect gold in my opinion. So I used my laser printer to print out these greetings. I am just positioning the foil with the pretty side up over those printed images so the ink is facing the back side of that foil. And then I'm running it through my Mink mini machine on the 3 setting. And when these come out the back, I just kind of like to press that foil on there. I'm not sure that it actually does anything, but in my world, it makes a difference. And you can see when I pull off the foil there, I have a perfectly foiled greeting. Isn't that awesome? I love it. And for those of you who are interested, I will link all the supplies used in the over at my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. And I will link the featured supplies in the description at YouTube. But YouTube doesn't let me link all of them because it gets too long. So for some of those supplies, you may have to visit my blog, but check that out because I usually list like everything that I use on these projects over at my blog. So if you don't see it in the description at YouTube, check over there. So while I was rambling about the supplies, I used this Hello die from Simon Says Stamp to cut out some licorice twist cardstock, and I used a little Zig 2-way glue pen to adhere that to my vellum greeting. And I also used that same Hello die to cut out some fun foam, and I'm just going to apply this cardstock and vellum kind of grouping here over that fun foam. It's going to give it a little bit of lift and dimension. And I just used a little bit of the Tombow Mono Multi Glue to do that. Now, sometimes I just like to use different glues for different things. And I can't always tell you why I use what I use when I use it. But I do like to use the Tombow Mono Multi Glue when adhering my fun foam to my cardstock. And I like to use the Zig 2-way glue to adhere the cardstock to the vellum. It's just, I don't know, it's just one of those things. I think when you start using them more, you get an idea for what you like. Anyway, so I have my card base here. It's made out of a piece of linen cardstock from the Essentials by Ellen line. I used an ink blending tool to add a little bit of the Hero Arts Tide Pool ink. This is going to just give my images kind of a grounding place. And I just lightly blended it on there. I tapped it off on a piece of scratch paper before I brought my ink blender over onto the card base so that I made sure I wouldn't get any big, massive blobs of ink onto this card base. So I cut down a piece of this striped Shape-In tape from We Are Memory Keepers, and I used my Martha Stewart scoreboard to help me get that lined up perfectly along that card edge. And now I'm adhering my images onto my card, and I'm just going to kind of group these into a fun little grouping. So I'm going to use different dimensions. The pineapple is on 1 layer of foam adhesive. That little tangerine flower is on 2 layers of foam adhesive. And to kind of make this sentiment all even out, I decided I needed another layer of fun foam, but just on one side of this greeting because the other side is going to overlap that pineapple, so it will give it some dimension and some support there. So I had to cut it out of some fun foam again, and I'm applying the Tombow Mono Multi Glue to the front of that, and I did cut off the O of the hello. So I apologize for any obscenities that are appearing on the screen when I cut off the O off of the hello greeting, but you know how it is. So anyway, I use the Tombow Mono Multi-Glue again to adhere that entire grouping over the top of that pineapple. And I love the way the vellum just allows you to still see the pineapple through that greeting. And I'm going to finish off my grouping here by adding a couple more of these flowers. This is the teeny bikini flower here, and I'm just tucking it behind that grouping. And I did it while the glue was still wet so that I could kind of work it in behind there. And then this flower here, I ended up putting a layer of foam adhesive behind it and layering it over the top of the pineapple again. But I was careful that it didn't overlap and block the pineapple too much. And I just used my tweezers to kind of squeeze those in there. I'm going to round the bottom right-hand corner of my card with my 3/8 inch We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper, and I am going to add a little variety here of some clear droplets from Pretty Pink Posh along with some sparkling clear sequins. Now, when I layered these layers up, I did get a little bit of that Tombow Mono Multi-Glue onto the front of my greeting there. So I just used a Xyron adhesive eraser. If you don't have one of these, you need to get it. It pulls that adhesive right up off of that cardstock, gives me a nice clean black cardstock again. I don't have adhesive boogers all over the front of my greeting there. And then I just finished that sentiment off with a layer of glossy accents over the top. I love to add glossy accents over the top of these intricate die cut sentiments. I think it just makes them super awesome and amazing. So here's a look at the completed card project. It says, "Hello, ya Orana," and I am greeting you from French Polynesia. I hope you are having a fabulous day. As always, like I mentioned before, I will have links to all the featured products in the description at YouTube, and most every single product I used in this card project will be linked over at my blog as well. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Be sure to keep an eye out for my next card video, and you can do that by hitting the subscribe button below. That'll make sure you don't miss any of my card making videos. Once again, thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.